A new beginning. Emily tightened her grip on the cardboard box as the moving van pulled away, its engine rumbling down the quiet suburban street. Sunlight filtered through the sycamore trees, dappling the cracked sidewalks of Maple Lane, her new home. She took a deep breath, letting the crisp autumn air fill her lungs. The scent was different from the city, sharp and clean, with an undertone of freshly cut grass. Her daughter Lily hopped out of the car, instantly chasing after a fluffy neighborhood cat. Emily smiled, nerves and hopeful anticipation mingling in her chest. A new start. She needed this. The first neighbor to approach was a woman in her 50s with a perfect blonde bob and a cardigan thrown over her shoulders. She introduced herself as Karen, the unofficial welcoming committee of the block, as she liked to say. Karen's handshake was firm, her eyes bright but measuring. "First time in the suburbs?" Karen asked, a hint of amusement tugging at her lips. Emily nodded, noticing how Karen's gaze slid over the battered minivan and the half-unpacked boxes littering the porch. "We just needed a little change of pace," she replied, forcing a smile. "Of course, you'll love it here," Karen said, glancing at her watch. "Most people are friendly. We have a community garden at the end of the lane, big project around here. Maybe you and your daughter would like to help sometime." Before Emily could answer, Karen waved at another neighbor, a woman in gardening gloves, skin tanned from the sun, who offered a warm, sincere smile. This was Anna, who lived 2 doors down. Anna introduced herself with a gentle handshake. Her eyes were kind in a way that made Emily's shoulders relax. "Don't mind Karen," Anna whispered with a wink. "She likes to organize everything." The afternoon faded as Emily and Lily moved through the house, opening windows and stacking boxes in the appropriate rooms. Each time she paused, uncertainty crept in. Would they fit? Would the neighbors be kind? She was determined to build something new, for herself, for Lily. As dusk fell, Emily stood on her back porch, gazing over the small fence at the shared garden beyond, the centerpiece of the block. "Mom, there's a lady outside and she has sunflowers!" Brushing flour from her hands, Emily followed her daughter to the backyard. There, standing beside the gate to the shared garden, was Anna. Her arms were full of bright yellow blooms and freshly picked tomatoes, and her gardening gloves were streaked with dirt. "I thought you and Lily might like a taste of the neighborhood," Anna said, holding out a handful of tomatoes. "We grow these right over there." She nodded toward a patch of earth where twisting green vines hugged wooden stakes. Emily accepted the gift, feeling an unexpected rush of gratitude. "Thank you. They're beautiful. This is really kind." Anna smiled, lines creasing her sun-beaten cheeks. "We're glad to have you here. The garden's everyone's project. Some find it a bit much, but I love it. You and Lily are welcome anytime, especially on Saturday mornings. That's when most of us gather to plant or weed or just talk." Emily glanced at Lily, whose face was already smeared with tomato juice from a surreptitious bite. "We'd love to come by," Emily said, surprised by how much she meant it. The week passed in a blur of boxes and introductions. Karen returned with pamphlets about the Homeowners Association and a subtle warning about leaving toys in the yard. Emily practiced polite smiles and took mental notes, but Saturday changed everything. Stepping into the shared garden, Emily felt she had wandered into a secret world. Anna guided her down neat rows of beans and lettuce, pausing to introduce her to the other gardeners, Mr. Sanchez from across the street, who quietly trimmed herbs and whistled old tunes, Maya, a teenager with neon hair who tended the butterfly bush, and several others, each with their own plot, their own laughter and rituals. Lily ran with a gaggle of kids her age, chasing butterflies and gathering fallen petals. Emily watched, a bittersweet pang rising in her chest, reminding her of childhood summers and of all she longed to give her daughter. As the sun rose higher, Karen arrived in a crisp, spotless blouse and wide-brimmed sun hat. She placed herself near Emily, her smile polite but tight. "I see Anna has you settled in," Karen said, voice syrupy with welcome. "Please." "Saturday?" Emily turned, meeting Anna's encouraging smile with one of her own. "Absolutely," she replied, hope blooming in her chest. And for the first time, Maple Lane didn't feel quite so strange after all. Strange signs. The first sign of trouble was so small, Emily almost missed it. It was Wednesday morning, barely past dawn, and the world outside her kitchen window was drenched in that silvery blue light the suburbs only seemed to get before the day began in earnest. Emily stood at the sink sipping her coffee and watching Lily, still drowsy, pour cereal into a bowl. In the garden beyond, a few early risers worked quietly, Anna tending to her delicate herbs, and Mr. Sanchez stooped over the basil patch. When Lily ran outside, skipping toward the communal garden with a book in hand, Emily followed. It was still early in their new routine, but already the garden felt like a small piece of peace, a luxury she wanted to preserve. That's when she heard the voices, low and urgent, coming from around the corner. Emily slowed her steps as she rounded a cluster of roses. Anna stood beside the battered bench, her gardening gloves dangling at her side, concern shadowing her usually calm face. Maya, her bright green hair now tied in a neat ponytail, pointed at a section of flower bed along the fence. Several of the prized orchids were drooping, their slender stems crushed as if pressed by careless feet. Clumps of mud were splattered around the petals. "That's odd," Anna muttered, her brow furrowed as she knelt to inspect the damage. "These were fine yesterday." Maya nodded. "And look at the tulips over there. Something's been digging." Emily felt a thread of unease work its way into her chest. She knelt beside Anna, noting 2 more trampled flowers near their feet. The soil was oddly clumped and disturbed. "No one saw anything last night?" Maya asked, chewing at the edge of her painted thumb. "Not me," Anna said, "and I was out here late, soon after." That afternoon, as Emily walked Lily home from school, a couple of women she'd only met in passing spoke in hushed tones as she approached. Conversation stopped abruptly when she entered the local market. It was subtle, but after years of city life, Emily could spot a cold shoulder a mile away. That evening, as she tucked Lily into bed, Emily stared out at the garden. Someone, or something, was disrupting the little sanctuary she'd just started to love. And somehow, it already felt personal. From behind her, Lily's sleepy voice broke the quiet. "Don't worry, Mommy. The flowers will grow back." Emily managed to smile, pulling the blanket higher across Lily's shoulders. "They always do, honey." But as night fell, Emily's mind wandered over bruised petals and muddy footprints, and the tiniest whisper of doubt crept in. Something wasn't right in Maple Lane's shared garden, and she had a feeling it was only the beginning. Under suspicion. The sunlight looked different that Thursday morning, thin, watery, hesitant. Emily stood at her front window, coffee cooling in her hand as she watched Karen walk briskly from house to house with purposeful steps, stopping to talk in low voices to every neighbor along Maple Lane. More than once, those conversations ended with someone glancing in Emily's direction. The sense of isolation pricked deeper as the day wore on. At the community mailbox, whispers followed Emily's footsteps. Maya barely nodded as she hurried by. Even Mr. Sanchez, with his usual easygoing wave, only offered a half smile. News, it seemed, traveled on the breeze here, each whisper growing sharper with every retelling. Emily tried to distract herself, watering the violets on her porch, suggesting a movie for Lily, but the unease lingered. She found herself replaying Karen's words. Strange things happening ever since new faces moved in. By the afternoon, Emily could hardly stand the silence. She glanced at the lush sprawl of the shared garden and, after checking that Lily was busy drawing, slid through the back gate, determined to face whatever waited. Anna was working among the marigolds, small shovel in hand, sun hat shadowing her lined face. Attention. Sometimes gossip comes from fear or from someone hiding their own tracks. Emily blinked. You mean someone is purposely stirring up trouble? Anna didn't answer directly, but she glanced meaningfully toward Karen's house, where pastel curtains fluttered behind spotless windows. Some people need to feel in control. Try not to let it change you, Emily. The garden's big enough for all kinds of roots. For the first time that week, Emily felt a flicker of solidarity. Anna didn't just believe in her, she was urging her to fight for her place. Later, as Emily returned to her kitchen, she watched Lily color by the window, pencil shavings scattered across the table. There was more to this story than a few trampled flowers, and Emily had no intention of fading into the background. She was here now. She wasn't going anywhere. If you'd like, I can continue expanding further chapters in this style, or explore the emotional impact and social politics in even greater detail. Looking for clues. The accusations no longer whispered. They lingered over Maple Lane like a morning fog. Emily sensed them in every glance, every unfinished sentence. With each day, the shared garden felt less like the gentle sanctuary she and Lily had stumbled into, and more like a stage set for some invisible trial. The unease shifted into something else, resolve. On Saturday, Emily sent Lily to play in the cul-de-sac with the other children and lingered by her kitchen window, scanning the garden for anything amiss. Anna was away for the weekend visiting family. Her absence made the garden seem lonelier, untended. By late morning, Emily pulled on her oldest sneakers and rubber gloves and walked the length of the garden, her gaze sharp and searching. She crouched by the battered orchids, remembering Anna's advice. Don't ignore what's happening. Pay attention. She noticed something odd near the dying tulips, a series of footprints just faintly visible in the soft earth. Someone small-footed, maybe a woman or child, the pattern crisscrossed, not heading anywhere in particular. Emily pressed her knuckles to her lips. To conclusions. But she wouldn't pretend everything was fine either. Later, as she walked through the alley behind the houses, she noticed a flash of lavender in the trash can behind Karen's fence. Emily's heart hammered. The gloves were the same color. She hesitated, glancing up and down the empty alley before hurrying away. That evening at dinner, Lily picked absently at her pasta. "Are you sad about the flowers, Mommy?" she asked. Emily reached out, squeezing Lily's hand. "A little, but sometimes if you look closely, you find clues about how things really are." Lily nodded, her brow furrowed as if puzzling over a riddle. "We can be flower detectives," she said. Emily couldn't help but smile. Yes, she thought, flower detectives. The idea felt equal parts childish and brave, and exactly right. As dusk slipped over Maple Lane, Emily watched the windows of her neighbors' houses flicker to life, shadows moving behind glass. This wasn't the clean slate she'd dreamed of, but she owed it to herself and to Lily to see the truth emerge from beneath the dirt. Tomorrow, she promised herself, she would look closer still. Beneath the surface. Sunday brought stubborn clouds and a gentle drizzle, turning Maple Lane gray and reflective. Emily and Lily sat at the breakfast table, sunlight struggling to reach them through the glass. Emily watched the raindrops trace silent rivers down the window pane, her mind working through clues and half-formed suspicions. "Can we go to the garden, Mommy?" Lily piped up, swinging her feet under the table. Emily hesitated but nodded. "We'll bring our rain boots and our detective eyes." Bundled up, they crossed the yard. The garden shimmered with the freshness of rain, the trampled tulips and battered orchids still bearing silent testimony to the trouble brewing. The air had that earthy, hopeful scent of things both growing and being washed clean. As they walked the muddy paths, Lily pointed out broken petals and bits of litter, her eyes wide with the seriousness of a true detective. "Look, Mommy, a feather. Maybe it was a bird?" Emily tried to muffled voices drifted over the fence. Emily peered through the hedges. Karen was talking to another neighbor, her hands slicing through the air in sharp gestures. "Telling you, it's better if someone keeps watch," Karen said, voice rising. "We can't risk more damage. If Anna won't take the lead, I will." Emily shrank back, pulse quickening. So it was Karen whipping up the tension, just as Anna had warned. But why? As the rain picked up, Emily turned to Lily. "Let's go inside, honey. It's time to make some detective notes." That night, Emily waited for the house to quiet, then sat at the kitchen table, sketching out what she knew. A timeline of garden mischief, a list of those who might benefit from chaos. Karen, certainly. Anna seemed above suspicion, but maybe she was being naive. And what about Maya, or the other neighbors who barely looked her way? She turned the tiny key over in her hand, rubbing her thumb over its surface. Maybe the way forward wasn't to confront the neighbors. Instead, she'd go beneath the surface, quietly, methodically. Her new home wasn't perfect, but as the rain drummed against the roof and Lily slept soundly in the next room, Emily felt her resolve harden. Maple Lane's shared garden held secrets, and she was closer now than ever before. She slipped the silver key into an envelope, writing today's date on the flap. One more clue, one step closer. Midnight in the garden. The house was silent. Emily lay awake, eyes fixed on the ceiling, listening to the quiet tick of the kitchen clock. Lily had fallen asleep hours ago, her comforter pulled up to her chin. But sleep kept its distance from Emily. The key pressed against her thoughts, sharp and insistent, a question that refused to be set aside. At midnight, Emily rose quietly, pulling on a sweater over her pajamas. She took the silver key from the envelope in her bedside drawer and slipped out the back door, careful not to wake Lily. The garden was hushed, slick with dew and moonlight. In the distance, the yellow porch lights of Maple Lane shimmered through the drizzle. Emily's boots left faint tracks on the muddy path as she moved with purpose toward the garden's far corner. The shed sat in a pocket of shadows, its peeling white for all of us to use the garden. I don't want trouble, but something is wrong. M. Beneath the letters was a faded notebook. Emily flipped it open to the last page, her heart thumping. June 1st. Roses cut back again. Anna upset. June 7. New family. Emily and Lily moved in. Karen complained to committee. June 8. Orchids trampled. Karen insists on new rules. June 10. Gloves missing. Emily's mind spun. Someone had been tracking every disturbance. But the careful, worried handwriting wasn't hers or Anna's. She snapped a photo of the last page with her phone, numb with a sense of dread and excitement. A sudden noise snapped her head up, footsteps on the path just outside. Emily froze, breath caught in her throat. Through the crack in the shed door, she saw the bobbing glow of a flashlight and the silhouette of Karen, outlined in pale blue. Emily's pulse raced. She waited, pressed against the wall, as Karen paused by the compost bins. The beam of light swept across the garden, resting briefly on the shed. Emily held her breath, praying she wouldn't be discovered. After what felt like a lifetime, Karen turned and headed back toward her own house, the flashlight beam fading. Emily exhaled shakily. She replaced the notebook and the letters, pocketed the photo, and gently eased the door shut. Back inside her own house, Emily leaned against the wall and let out a shaky laugh. She felt scared, yes, but also, at last, empowered. The garden's secrets were starting to take shape, their roots running deeper than she'd ever guessed. She slipped the key back into the envelope and tucked it into her dresser drawer. Tomorrow she would show Anna the photos. Tomorrow, perhaps, she would no longer be alone in this. And as the sunrise crept through her window, Emily finally drifted into sleep. Her first real rest since the trouble began. An alliance forms. Morning brought a brisk wind and the faint scent of wet earth stilled. She gave Emily a measured look, then wiped dirt from her palms. What kind of something? Emily pulled the envelope from her pocket. There are letters and a notebook. Someone's tracking everything that's happened. The missing gloves, the trampled flowers, even when Lily and I moved in. I took pictures. She handed her phone to Anna, watching as the older woman scrolled through the images, her expression darkening. I thought I was being paranoid. Anna finally whispered, Everyone's been so tense, but this is a pattern. Emily nodded. Karen's behind the whispers. Last night, I saw her out late, wandering the garden with a flashlight. She nearly caught me in the shed. Anna blew out a slow breath. I've known Karen for a long time. She likes her order, her rules, but this is different. They sat in silence, listening to the wind hiss through the hollyhocks. For the first time in weeks, Emily felt less alone. She looked at Anna, really looked, and saw exhaustion and anger and something deeper, a fierce protectiveness. What do we do? Emily finally asked. Anna set her jaw. We let her talk herself in circles. We pay attention, and if she pushes too far, the truth comes out, not just from us, but from the things she's been hiding. Maple Lane isn't just hers. It belongs to all of us. From across the garden, Maya appeared, carrying a basket of apples. She hesitated when she saw Anna and Emily together, then offered a tentative wave. Emily was struck by the realization that others, too, might be weary of Karen's reign. As Emily watched Anna take charge, gently coaxing Maya over, she felt something new spark inside her. Courage, hard-won and quiet. The past weeks had whittled her nerves raw, but she understood now. Change never came from hiding. That evening, as the sun slipped behind the rooftops and Lily's laughter rang down the lane, Emily slipped the envelope back into her drawer, hand steady. The garden's secrets were no longer hers to shoulder alone. An alliance had formed beneath the surface. Soon, Emily was sure, the roots would crack through the soil, and the truth would bloom at last. Storm warning. The days that followed felt electric, as if a summer storm hovered just out of sight. Even the air along Maple Lane seemed. They struck up conversations with neighbors while tending to the basil or pruning the old rose bushes, asking gentle questions and listening for cracks in the unity that Karen prided herself on. I wish we could just plant what we like, Maya confided one afternoon, voice low. Karen's always telling me off for the colors I pick. Mr. Sanchez leaned on his cane, peering at the shared tomatoes. She's taken the fun out of this place, he sighed. Nobody wants to join the workdays anymore. Bit by bit, frustration and fear began to outweigh the neighbors' instinct to keep the peace. But Emily still felt uneasy. The late-night discovery and the notebook secrets hadn't brought relief. Instead, they cast new shadows. Who had kept those records, and why? And what might Karen do if she realized her authority was slipping? That week, Lily brought home a drawing from school. Their garden, bright with wild shapes and colors, every flower different. When Emily knelt to pin it on the fridge, Lily whispered, "Maybe we can make the real garden like this." Emily hugged her close. "Maybe we can, sweet pea. Maybe we can." The next evening brought the tension to a head. As neighbors gathered for an unofficial meeting, no invitations, just people drifting together as dusk settled, Karen showed up last. Her arms were crossed, eyes sharp, clipboard pressed tight against her chest. "I see we're holding meetings now," she called, her tone accusing. Anna stepped forward, her voice calm. "We're just tired of secrets, Karen. Tired of rules we never agreed on." Maya nodded, and even Mr. Sanchez added, "We just want our garden back." A gust of wind rattled the roses and made the old swing creak. The silence was heavy, poised to spill into argument, tears, maybe even laughter, depending on what happened next. Emily looked at Anna, heart pounding. The storm wasn't just coming. It was here, finally, pressing against. She looked around the circle, her gaze meeting only stone-faced resolve. Emily took a breath. Her heart thudded. This was her moment. She reached into her pocket and held up the envelope. "I found this in the shed. Letters. A notebook. Someone's been keeping track of everything bad that's happened here. Every broken flower. Every missing glove. Even when Lily and I moved in." Murmurs rippled through the group. Anna nodded, voice strong. "We have pictures, and we know none of this. None of the accusations or the new rules was discussed together. That's not how a community should be." Karen's glare faltered. "I just wanted to protect the garden," she snapped, but the edge in her voice was gone. "It's all I have since—" She trailed off, fighting for composure. "Since Charlie left, nothing's been right." For a heartbeat, silence hung heavy. It was Mr. Sanchez who stepped forward. "You could have asked for help, Karen. We all could have." Karen's shoulders sagged. Under the harsh porch light, she looked smaller, older. I didn't know how." Emily squeezed Lily's hand. She saw now it was fear, not malice, shaping Karen's rules, a need for control amid life's unwieldy chaos. Anna laid a gentle hand on Karen's arm. "We can make new rules. Together." As the wind picked up, blowing petals past their feet, something loosened. The neighbors drew closer, exchanging shy smiles and hopeful glances. The burden of silence was gone, replaced by something fragile, but alive, a willingness to face the mess and rebuild. Maya brightened. "Sunflowers, then?" Emily grinned. "Sunflowers. And wild roses. And a patch for Lily's strawberries." Lily beamed up at her mother. Around them, laughter sparked, the real first sound of community since the trouble began. Neighbors lingered, talking not about problems, but about what might grow next season. For the first time since she'd moved in, Emily felt she belonged. The garden was bruised, untidy, but at last it was truly shared. and as the darkness deepened, a hush settled over Maple Lane, full of hope and the promise of new beginnings. Worked on repairing a broken trellis. She paused when Emily approached, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. "Need a hand?" Emily asked. Karen hesitated, then shrugged, a gesture that almost looked like relief. "Could use one, I guess. These nails have a mind of their own." The two women worked side by side, the rhythm of hammer and nail filling the gaps where awkwardness might have grown. Emily noticed the way Karen's fingers trembled ever so slightly, and how she paused to brush dirt from her eyes more often than necessary. "Thank you," Karen said quietly, for not giving up on me, on any of this. Emily met her gaze. "We all want the same thing, a place where everyone belongs." For the first time, Karen's smile was genuine. Lily darted up then, cheeks flushed, a small sprouting strawberry plant cradled in her arms. "Can I make a garden patch just for me?" she asked breathlessly. Karen knelt, nodding. "Of course you can, honey. In fact, I'll help you dig the holes." The little group swelled over the following days. Maya's sunflowers stretched eagerly toward the sky. Anna started a compost project, and Mr. Sanchez became resident expert on tomatoes, offering unsolicited advice, bad jokes, and juicy fruit in equal measure. Neighbors who had once barely nodded now lingered to chat, to share cuttings, to laugh together in the sun. As summer unfurled around them, Emily planted a row of her mother's favorite zinnias, remembering home, but no longer longing for it. Her roots were here now, twining through soil and friendship alike, woven into a garden not defined by rules, but by people learning to trust one another again. At dusk, she sat beside Lily beneath the tallest sunflowers, watching shadows draw patterns over the neatly weeded beds and rough-hewn trellises. The garden was still imperfect, patches of bare soil, stubborn weeds. But it was also honest, and finally, unmistakably alive. "I think the flowers are happier now," Lily whispered. Emily smiled, feeling over her shoulder, no longer waiting for the next tense word or silent accusation. Even Karen's movements around the garden had grown loose and unhurried. She approached her neighbors with tentative kindness, a recipe for apple cake shared here, a sturdy rake lent there. Once, she apologized when she stepped on Maya's marigolds. Maya, without missing a beat, handed her a cutting of lemon balm for her tea. Anna, ever the quiet backbone, organized the weekend workday for the coming harvest. On a chilly Saturday, the whole block turned out, young and old, skilled and tentative. There was talk and laughter, and a little squabbling, as Lily and her friends argued about who could pick the most strawberries. Mr. Sanchez told stories of gardens he tended long ago, his voice soft and reverent. When dusk fell, Anna lit a string of paper lanterns around the garden beds. They glowed gently, dots of flame against the dusky blue. Emily brought out a thermos of cocoa. They sat together on old picnic benches, sharing apple cake and memories, their breaths smoky in the cool night. Karen, sitting silently at the edge of the group, finally cleared her throat. "I wish Charlie could have seen this," she said, voice just above a whisper. No one said anything for a moment. Then Anna reached across the table and squeezed her hand. It was enough. Children darted between lanterns, Lily leading the parade, their shadows long and playful. No one wanted to go in. There was talk of a Halloween party, of pumpkin carving, of a chorus of scarecrows lining the fence. Hope lingered in every shared smile, every plan spun out into the future. As the moon rose, pale and round above the rooftops, Emily felt time slow and expand. She looked around at her neighbors, these friends, once strangers and foes, and realized the garden's true harvest was this: forgiveness, courage, togetherness. a place each of them, despite everything, could finally call home. That night, the shared garden shimmered under its harvest moon, wild and imperfect, a living testament to the secret that had finally become theirs to keep.